Awesome, awesome. This is so good. I feel like a kid who's just coming from a candy shop. So now we're just going to do our first round of questions. I'm going to start with you, Fred. So Fred, I think as I've said, you founded one of the fastest growing movements on the continent that's obsessed with developing student leadership. Could you please share a bit more about this and your journey and what you have learned throughout around developing the current and the next generation of leaders?
Yes, first of all, congratulations to Teach for All for coming to the birthplace of humankind. And I hope you'll enjoy the next few days with your summit here. Yes, I've been very passionate about developing leadership for this continent. I believe it's the single most important thing we have to get right if we're going to move Africa forward. So we began our journey about 20 years ago almost by starting a small school called the African Leadership Academy, where we have about 250 young leaders at a time selected from all across the continent. Many people in this room have been instrumental in the early days of getting that up off the ground, including Benga and Aisha Oyebode. They were very early supporters of ours. And so, you know, we picked young people around the age of 15 to 18 from across the continent, develop them into leaders and entrepreneurs, and help them to enter top universities around the world. After several years of doing that, we were blown away by the caliber of young people we were seeing and just the impact they were having on the world. But there were two challenges. One is it was expensive to develop one person. And the second is we thought, if you're only producing 125 graduates a year, is that enough leadership capacity for what is going to be 40% of the world's population one day? And so the question we asked is, what would it take to develop significant leadership capacity for 40% of the world? And that led us to scale up our work to African Leadership University. And today we have a campus in Mauritius and Rwanda. And we have about 2,000 young people there at a time. And then about 5 years ago, we realized that the world was becoming more and more influenced and driven by technology, and that the leaders of tomorrow would need a new competence, which is data science, software engineering, cloud computing, all of these forces that were changing the world. But we were concerned that technology, if it's not infused with ethics and values and an understanding of the challenges of society, like climate change and healthcare and governance, it can be a very dangerous force. And so we created a program called ALX, where we are fusing leadership development with technology. And so our students go through first, 3 to 6 months of training in leadership. A lot of what we've been doing in the academy and the university. And they learn about the challenges of Africa. And then they go through their technology training so that you actually have software engineers who have a value system. And if you're building artificial intelligence, you understand that, how do you make sure that it's not biased and actually can be a positive force for change, and you're using technology for climate change and to improve healthcare and things like that. And today we are, through that program, training about 200,000 young people in 29 campuses across the continent of Africa. So collectively, our vision is to develop 3 million leaders for the continent of Africa in the next 15 years. And to really, for these leaders to help solve our biggest challenges and capture our greatest opportunities. 3 things, I'll talk about 4 things that we've learned in the process. The first is that leadership cannot be taught, but it can be learned. And it's that whole thing of you can take someone a horse to the water, but you can't force them to drink. So it's really about self-agency and getting young people and creating an environment where they develop themselves as leaders, but you can't force someone to be a leader. The second thing is that culture and mindset really matters, right? And so we spend a lot of time really thinking about that in our institutions. The third is that leadership is best learned by doing. And so a lot of our methodologies at the academy, at the university, and ALX is very focused on getting people out of the classroom and into communities and getting practice and doing things. You learn to be a leader by being a leader. You learn to be an entrepreneur by being an entrepreneur. And the final thing is about the importance of starting young. It's just like you saw Wendy started this whole movement when she was 19 in the dorm room. We believe that's very important to get, the young women who are on stage right now. I was taking notes about leadership from the student, you know, and so we get young people and we give them significant responsibility. You know, if I think about my own journey, when I was 18, my mother made me the headmaster of the school that she was running. And that's where I learned how to be a leader in an education institution. And that experience at 18 of running the small school in Botswana gave me the confidence to do the academy when I was 25. And the academy gave the confidence to the university, and the university gave me the confidence to do ALX. So that experience when I was 18 is what has led me to this today. And that's philosophy of start young, give people significant responsibility, and you might then create someone who can have major impact later on.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Fred. I love what you're sharing around the innovative approaches that the LA group has been taking around student leadership. And I also loved how you just planted the seed that was planted by your mother when you were young kind of germinated. So if I just build onto what Fred has said around the leadership piece, Folawe, I know that reflecting on the remarkable journey of Teach for Nigeria over the last 6 years, could you share some examples of how that leadership has been demonstrated in your context? And how is it manifesting, and what are you witnessing in your context at Teach for Nigeria when you talk about student leadership?
Thank you so much. And gosh, it's so beautiful from up here. And welcome to Africa, welcome to Kenya. To your question, Vonga, I think it's important to mention that Teach for Nigeria has existed for 7 years now. And we have been able to recruit and place 1,600 plus fellows to teach. Yes, yes. Across 600 schools in 4 states in Nigeria. We currently have an existing network of 841 alumni who are doing incredible work together with the existing fellows who are impacting almost 300,000 students indirectly and directly through their different work. And when we think about the work that we've done with, you know, and to your question around student leadership, you know, there's a story that I want to share as to how I have seen student leadership demonstrated and why there's need for us to accelerate that type of leadership. And it's a story of a young lady who is in this audience, Esther, who I hope that you all will get a chance to hear a story and connect with throughout the conference. Esther was only 12 when she lost her mother. Her mother was a single mother, and so she had to move back to her mother's village to live with an uncle. And so Esther moved into this village called Idata Ilagbo, somewhere in Lagos State, in a remote area. And when you think about the reality of this community, this is a community that was defined by teenage pregnancy, unemployment, poverty. There was very little to hope for and to aspire to in this community. Esther went there and went to school, and in fact, one of the stories that we heard from one of the fellows that we posted there in 2021 was that as soon as he arrived there and he was trying to do all these great things in his class and put displays, you know, one teacher told him, like, there's no point. She was like, you know, the best student that graduated last year, SS3, she's now pregnant and she's starting a family. And, you know, there's just no point. Esther got tired of this narrative. And together with Isaac and Belikis, they decided to do something about it. Esther decided that she wasn't going to go on engaging parents and committee members in conversations, but she would show, together with her friends, what is possible when you come together and act. And so Esther decided that what they would do would be to give skills and equip the young people in the community. Together with her friends, they built a community technology lab.
Wow.
Yes, please. They built a lab, and this lab was built not just by Esther. The community was so inspired by the efforts, the teachers, the principal, that they worked together. There were parents who provided bamboos. There were people who provided planks and wood, like different people literally contributing their own resources, their own expertise, carpentry, literally knocking the nails into the woods, and they built this lab. And Esther, together with her friends, started to train, give digital skills training, robotics, coding to other students in this school. We're on the bus together as we arrived from Lagos, and we're heading to the hotel here in Nairobi, and I was checking in with Esther, just asking how this project was going and how she was doing. Esther graduated from this school, Idata Ilagbo community, but then the work has continued. And I was saying to her, you know, very playfully, I think we as adults need to learn about sustainability from Esther, because what Esther and her friends have been able to do as they've graduated from the secondary school is that the work has still continued. SS3 students in this community are now training SS2 and SS1 students, while the GSS3 students are training GSS2 and GSS1. They've moved out of the way, but they've also given a chance of leadership to the other students who are in the school. This community, the hope, the inspiration, the excitement for what has happened through that project and through that initiative, they've never seen before. The district in Lagos State recognized this community for the first time in the history of this community. The State Ministry of Education, and the former commissioner is here as well, she recognized this community because of the work that they're doing. And so for me, really, it's just how students, through reimagining what is possible, how that can influence the community as well.
Wow. I think this deserves a round of applause. Esther, can you just wave from wherever you are? There she is. Well done. Well done. I just get so many goosebumps. And the part that Flowers and shared was that from then, they've started witnessing so many Esthers who are witnessing what is possible. Because it's one thing for an adult to tell a child that this is possible, and it's another to see the student leadership. So this is incredible. Just talking about community involvement, I'm going to come to you, Kennedy, now. I know you grew up in Kibera, which is one of the largest slums, not just in Nairobi, but in Africa. And some of you are going to go to some of those slums tomorrow. I know you launched Shining Hope for the community. So one of the things that have been so inspiring to me when I hear about SHOFCO is the model of collective leadership in action. And can you tell us a bit more about how SHOFCO has been able to galvanize communities? And I would like to, in particular, the role of students and young people in that, and in particular parts of your story around how you also started as a young people yourself.
Thank you so much, Bungai. Yeah, so I'm a strong believer in communities have solution, localization, right? And it was our dream that we wanted to start a school in Kibera that is really understand our values, who we are. So when I was around 15 years old, that's when SHOFCO was started. And it was a dream that we are the solution in our community. And honestly, I didn't like the system of Kenyan education, which is all about the teacher is the boss. You stand up, teachers always right, students always wrong. And if you think about this, I think it came from colonial mentality that was helping to colonize Africans. Then the next thing happened, the elite took it over, and they sent their children abroad, and they make sure that the schools in our African countries are not that good. So that's what happened. So my dream was that how can you have a school whereby everyone is involved? So at Kibera School for Girls, it was very interesting. I remember that I was in trouble for starting a girls' school and saying that it is a student-centered type of education. They were like, no. They are children. What do they know? And think about that. If you are a kid, you are being told no. You are being told nothing. So when you grow up, it's going to affect you. So what we did was that we involved the parents, the idea of listening, and understanding why do they believe in beating children, right? And I said that, listen, can we try new ways of understanding the students? So I believe that you cannot do anything without listening and collaborating in a community. You know, and I've seen right now, as I speak with you, I see my beautiful students are here, two of them. I have students in Columbia University, in the US, you know, they have gone from Kibera. And the idea is that, and I really believe in what we are doing as Teach for Kenya, because it's unfair. Because it's fair, because if you think about this, it's all about where you are born. If you are born in a poor place, your likelihood to succeed is really tough. So, and our dream is to make sure we give every child opportunity. And that's why I really believe in Teach for Kenya, what they're doing in our schools. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Kennedy. And what I love about what Kennedy shared is a living example of what it takes when you look and beyond how, you know, like right beyond how education is structured right now. And I know in so many forums, Kennedy, you have shared how you started this football club, and that was your education. It had nothing to do with numeracy and literacy. And now when we look at the fruits of your womb, for lack of a better word, the amount of children you have been able to birth through that has been incredible. So thank you so much, Kennedy. We appreciate you. So for this round, last but not least, I want to come to you, Professor. So thank you so much, and I love the colors. So I've heard you say so many times the old dynamics of education, where the teacher's job is to impart things, what they know to students is dead. And I've seen you talk a lot around education and how we need to rethink education and leverage technology, etc. Could you share some of the examples where you have been able to cultivate student leadership through technology and other things? So any practice that you want to share around student leadership, that will be good.
Thank you very much, Bongai. Hello.
Yes.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Bongai. It's a pleasure to be here. Here's the thing, the world is changing, and it's changing so fast. Whilst we're sitting here, the science and technology that's coming out of laboratories, universities, that's growing at an unprecedented pace. And as a result, whilst we are worried about how we use that technology in classrooms, there's a community elsewhere. I serve on the board of the Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipator, and we do anticipatory science. We're thinking about the future, 5, 10, 25 years from now. What are the problems that we can anticipate, and what are the solutions that we can think about? And also, how do we think about this science that's coming out to solve the problems of the future? And in the board, one of my strongest voice is about how do we make sure that we don't leave Africa behind and don't leave young Africa behind. And so those of you who follow me online will know that I do sessions online on this, you know, the breakthrough science and technology, and I take a few young people to Geneva. We just came back last week so that they participate in this. But here's the thing. When I got to UCT the first time, I mean, UCT is a top university, right? I got there in 2016, in July. Towards the end of the year, during exam, we're in a meeting, and the big thing that's troubling the deans and everyone in the room is how do we make sure that there's no copying, there's no cheating, right? Now, they have outlawed laptops, they've outlawed phones, and that year, 2016, they say watches must come off, we must buy big clocks, and they must be on the wall. And we're spending an hour discussing this. So I said to them, guys, we are solving the wrong problem. Because next year, you'll be saying nobody must come with spectacles. The following year, it will be buttons. The next year, it will be shirts. Suddenly, children will have to come into the exam hall naked, right? Because you're worried that they'll be copying. And I said to them, the big problem is understanding what we do at university. What's education about? If they can open the laptop and get the answer, then you shouldn't be assessing them on it. And so when we teach, I think the first thing is to challenge ourselves. Why do we teach? Why do I teach what I'm teaching? Can they just get it easily? And if they can, so what do I ask? And in a sense, this is not a new question. I mean, those of you in the room who are mathematics teachers would know that, well, it depends how old you are. I'm very old. So I existed at a time, I was a teacher, a high school teacher at a time when scientific calculators, graphing calculators did not exist. You know graphing calculators, right? And at that time, it made sense to teach a graph and also examine learners on, have a question that says, draw this graph or draw that graph. And then the graphing calculator came. The students have it in class, and even in poor areas, Casio will give them for free. We want them to get, now, they press the button, the graph comes out. Now, as a teacher, your challenge is not the tool that's there. The challenge is, why is the tool there? What, does it make sense to teach the graph in the way that I've taught it before? Yeah. Does it make sense to ask them the question that I've been asking, if they can just press a button and it comes? And so it challenges, it shook, and that's little technology, right? And you can say, well, they've got to learn. Well, when children see the graphing calculator for the first time, they play around with it, they're not used to it, it becomes something novel, but after a few hours, it's a tool. It's like driving. They just press it without thinking it comes. Now, what we have today is generative AI, ChatGPT. Now, many universities, I've been on so many panels where some universities are saying, we've got to outlaw it, let's have police, because you can press, it will do things for you. It will write an essay for you, ChatGPT, or generative, anyone that you use will write things for you, and so the question becomes bigger. What do you teach? Why? And so, should we outlaw ChatGPT? I said, absolutely not. It is here. In fact, ChatGPT is a walk in the park, given what's coming in the next 2 to 3 years. So that's a challenge to us teachers. Why do you teach? What do you teach? And that's the thing. So we've got to, the challenge for us is to ask ourselves that question, and then, it revolutionized teaching, because it's not about the fact that I can click ChatGPT. In fact, it's how do I work in ChatGPT in my teaching, whether it's mathematics or sociology or history? How do I work it in to an extent that students do not think it's a sin to use it? Because in fact, when they start working, they're going to use it. They have to use it. In many ways, it saves time. You want them to think about how generative AI can actually assist. So how do you work it into the teaching? And because this is the world that they're going to work in, to live and practice in. And in fact, that world will be much more advanced than we have now. Yeah. We'll have machines that are much smarter than human beings.
I can tell that the professor is getting so passionate about your subject. So thank you so much. And I think for me what remains core to what she's saying is this whole question around how, is it a time now where we have to redefine the purpose of education, right? My 16-year-old son, who's more like me, so we clash all the time, is always asking, Mommy, why should I be learning about graphs? Why should I be learning about things? So thank you so much. So one of the logos you have seen around this conference is the logo of Ubuntu. So Ubuntu, for most of us who are from this continent, it's a big deal. Ubuntu means I am because we are. And this makes me think about our focus on collective leadership. So Folawe, coming to you first, how have you effectively embedded this powerful ethos within your students to ensure they embody and are genuinely moved by it?
Thank you, Vangai. I think before I answer your question, I just wanted to say that, just from the reflections that we're having, one of the things that I've noticed and observed is that unleashing leadership actually unleashes learning. And so we can think about all the 1 million problems, the topics of subjects that we have to teach, but if we unleash leadership in students, they would take their own learning and own it, and they would unleash that learning that needs to happen. And then to how we've done it, I wish I could tell you, this is like the silver bullet and the magic one, but I think it's a process, and I think it's a journey that, a lot of my colleagues in this room have been part of that process. And it starts from the point of even recruiting the sort of leaders, the process of recruiting, but also the people that we bring into the work. So how we recruit them, how we select them, how we assess them, the different stakeholders and the different actors that we bring in to engage in this process with us. The people that we're also identifying, some of our most promising young individuals in our country, but also people who have experienced the inequities that we're trying to dismantle in itself, and professionals as well who are already within the system. That is one piece. Another piece is then the training that we provide. And one of the things that I was sharing, and I think I was sharing this with you some days ago, is that our pre-service training for when we're about to place our fellows that kicks off reflects that collective leadership. You wouldn't find just the faculty of Teach for Nigeria in the training institute. You would find parents, you would find public sector officials, you would find school principals and school leaders, you would find education officers, students, and that in itself is reflective of what we're expecting that fellows would take on and model in their different communities. And in the fellowship program in itself, there's something that happens during the fellowship where fellows are being coached and being guided to find solutions to barriers of learning for students. And they have to come up with a Be the Change project. I'm sharing this because they model that when they go into their classrooms. And as a result of that, the students equally take that on, and they are equally then modeling that in their ways of being and how they're showing up in their communities and in their classrooms. And I really do think that that whole process and journey is what contributes to how we're seeing student leadership show up amongst their students.
All right, thank you so much, Folawe. I'm just going to swiftly move to Kennedy. Kennedy, I've heard you say on many occasions, Ubuntu is what your organization is about. It's one of the strong foundations for your organization. How have you been able to maintain the values of Ubuntu?
Thank you. When I think of where I was born and where I grew up in, Kibera, from a really tough place, struggle. But in that struggle, I saw something else. I saw love. I saw community. I saw the spirit of Ubuntu, whereby your child is not your child. It's a child of the community. And I travel around in different slums in Nairobi, in Kenya. That love that I see is the Ubuntu spirit. It's in their blood. So what we do now in our schools, with our communities, with the youth, you are not an island. And sometimes I think we have to teach Ubuntu to wealthy people and rich people. I'm sorry, forgive me. Yeah? They need that. Okay, if you go around, you see how communities are really uplifting themselves with less. Touches me. It's like they're giving almost their 70%. Look at the rich, the wealthy. So our students, they are reminded, you are who you are because of we. If you walk back home, someone takes care of you. Okay? Of course, there is darkness in light. Don't forget about that. You know? But I think this thing can be really integrated in classrooms, in the community. And honestly, is not what we say. It's how we act. They are looking at us. Students are looking at us. So right now, for example, students who are now in the US, they come back, or in the community, they are able to have programs of supporting others in other schools that are much poorer in the informal schools. So that's what I believe in. And I think Ubuntu spirit, if we could really take this African Ubuntu spirit in the world, there'll be no war, there'll be love. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What's your name? Sorry, I'm joking.
Kennedy.
Kennedy, sorry, I'm joking. Thank you so much, Kennedy, for that. Coming to you, Fred. Okay, right. Okay, I need to be serious. Okay, coming to you, Fred. Like, if we still think along the lines of the same question, I know one of the things that you shared is most of the things you do throughout the LA group, you've got different strategies that you take to develop these leaders and the communities, still with some of the Ubuntu principles and ethos. Could you just share briefly a bit more on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to be deliberate about leadership development. You can't just hope that leaders will develop by accident. I think the reason Africa is in the way it is today is because we've left it to chance. So the way we think about it is, firstly, you have to select people with leadership potential. So as schools, we need to go beyond academics and look at, does someone have passion? Do they have resilience? Do they have imagination? Do they have courage? Because leadership takes courage. You have to go against the status quo and be willing to challenge powerful forces that don't want you to change things, right? And then the ethics and values as well. So are you selecting people who, you think have the values that you would like to see in your leaders, right? So that's the first thing. Then secondly, you have to redefine the role of a teacher. As Kennedy was mentioning earlier, traditionally teachers are the stars in the classroom. And it's all about them and what they know, and everyone is there just to receive that knowledge. Teachers need to see themselves as facilitators of greatness in others, where your job is to make the student the star, and to build their confidence, to inspire them and to believe in themselves, because young people rise to expectations. So if you tell them you will be great, you show them love, like what Kennedy was talking about, then they start to rise and say, wow, okay, I can actually do great things. I can actually change the world. So a lot of the role of the teacher has to be different. It's not about you. It's about making these young people become, truly outstanding human beings, right? We also need to think about the long term when it comes to developing leaders. Too many people go for a one-week course in leadership and then they come back and say, I've done leadership training. That's not it. Leadership, you never arrive at your destination. You're always growing as a leader. So you have to think of it as a beginning. Whatever you do is just the beginning of their journey. So one of the things we do in the AL group is we say you never graduate from AL group. When we talk about people talk about, I'm class of 2004, 2024. Our class of is the class you started in the institution, not when you graduated. To really say you haven't finished, you're just getting started. And so that spirit of lifelong learning and continuing to nurture this person and track them as they go through life. So we follow our leaders, we help them get into college. If they went to the academy, if they went to the university, we help them get their first job, start ventures, we help them run for political office, and we're working with them for 20, 30, 50 years, right? Because that's the long-term view. And the final thing is, it's very important to build networks. Because no matter how good your skills as a leader, if you don't have the right networks, you won't be able to achieve the impact that you want. You need someone to mentor you, to invest in you, to partner with you. And so we really make sure we find people who embody the values that we hope to see in these leaders. Yeah. And we bring them into our community and connect these young people to very powerful networks, and then that allows them to accelerate their journey.
No, thank you so much, Fred, for talking about some of the opportunities that exist in your work, especially around networks, because it's one of the key foundations of Ubuntu. So last but not least, I'm coming to you, Professor. If we talk about opportunities to Fred's point, from your perspective, what are some of the opportunities that exist to amplify this message across the continent, bearing in mind that we've got different generations that are in existence? From what can we do to keep amplifying this whole message around Ubuntu?
I think we've got to model what Ubuntu looks like. I think it's okay for students not to even know the name and recite what it means, but to model it, and not only to tell our teachers to do it. And our continent has got a terrible, terrible history. You listen to Kennedy, Kennedy's story is different from mine, but my story is also a story of poverty. It's like you have a diversity of what poverty is in this continent. And many of the students go to school, go to university, they've never been seen, recognized, whatever. So for me, being vice chancellor of a university, what I did is that I recognized, and I took office at a time of great strife. I mean, when there was contestation, trauma and everything, shutdown after shutdown at the University of Cape Town that swept the country and the world. And so what I did was to start by making students aware that I see them. I recognize them. I know that they exist. And what I did is that I went to the dining hall. On a Saturday, I would go to the gym on Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and then I stopped at one of the residences, and I go into the dining hall, stand in the queue, and sit on the table with them, and then ask them, how is it? First of all, they are shocked that the vice chancellor is in the residence. Secondly, they can't believe that I'm standing in the queue. But what I'm doing by doing that is to say, status doesn't matter. I am not my position. Thirdly, they can't imagine me eating the same thing that they're eating. And I say to them, it's because I want to know what's the quality of the food that you're eating, right? Now, that I'll do at random. No announcement, nobody knows, but often I'll go with my sons sometimes, and I've got grown-up sons, and they'll take a video. And the reason I take a video is because I do want to put these things on social media because I want the message to perpetuate. The second thing that I did was, during exam time with students, I mean, I engage with students in many, many different ways. If you follow me on social media, you'll know that. But one of the things that I did every exam time is that at some stage during exam, I go to libraries with Kit Kats or Bawan in my bag. And then I walk, they don't expect me. I walk in, and sometimes I have messages for the students that says, you know, I'm thinking, I know how tough it is, I want you to do well, blah, blah, blah. And then I go, and they don't expect me, they're really studying, and I go, hi, good luck for the exams. Here's a chocolate for you. I've seen tears. I've seen excitement. I've seen some of them saying, wait, Prof, please, I want to take a picture with you because my mom wants to see it. And then, wait, I want to put the lipstick first before we do that. You know, but the thing is that they feel seen, and then I say to them, the message says to them, I know how it is. I know UCT is a competitive place. I know that. And I know that you may be coming from a rural area and you may be drowning and you think you are failing. And you might just fail by just thinking you're failing. And I'm telling you, you've got all it takes in my message. And so that matters, and I put it on social media. And I have seen someone in Nigeria copying it, which is great. They're doing it differently. But because I do it every semester, right? Now, and then finally, I know I'm taking too much time.
I'm going to say, Prof, we will come back to you.
Okay.
Can you hold off for a minute?
All right.
Because, again, because of time, we're going to come back to the panel. So, you know what? As I was sitting here, I was thinking, how can we talk about student leadership without hearing the voice of a student? So we're going to be so random here. Are there any students in the room? Students in the room? Yes. My dear, can someone give you a microphone? So what's your name? Okay, well, let's wait for a microphone. So if the cameras can beam on her, she's so special. So say your name, and I would like to answer you when you hear this panel, and when we talk about student leadership, tell me what comes to your mind.
Okay, my name is Teresia Caleb, and thank you to all the panelists for sharing what you have been doing to grow student leadership. I would like to say that even though all of us are learning and growing, we are all leaders today. And I believe that all of us have power to create a positive change. I think that all of you adults and all of us children, we need to work together. We need to work together to make our world a better place. And I'm from Gramo Joy in Embakasi South. Thank you.
Wow. Let's make some noise. This is awesome. Thank you so much for lending that voice. And on the spirit of learning, next time we'll make sure you're on this panel. But this is awesome. You know, I was going to ask my panel to just say one last closing remarks, but I don't have the faith that they'll be so brief. But I'm just going, no pressure, but if you can say in one sentence, what's your biggest takeaway? Like, what's the one thing you would love to leave with the audience before we finish? Just one thing. I think we can pass the microphone, and whosoever goes first is going to role model what it means to be precise.
I think really for me is, as adults, we just need to get out of the way and allow our young people to take leadership and just own it and run with it.
Thank you.
And believe in them.
I would say start young and trust. Let me look at this example right here.
Yeah.
I think we have to be hopeful.
Yeah. No pressure.
Don't be intimidated by the exuberance of the youth. We need it.
No, this is amazing. So can we all put our hands together and thank this panel for such an incredible, yes. Yes, thank you so much. And last but not least, I think for me, my biggest highlight of this session has been Teresa, the student. Imagine standing up in front of 600, getting asked a question. Let's give you another round of applause.